Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today to talk about the Growing Through Grief program with Nicole Barnes. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping things. We will be asking that everybody stay muted throughout the presentation since it's being recorded. But if you think of questions going forward throughout the presentation, please type them into the Q&A box, and then we will be able to get those answered by Nicole at the end of the presentation. And then before we move forward, I just wanted to share a little bit of information about Nicole. Nicole Barnes is a 17-year employee of Park Nicollet Healthcare Services and joined the Park Nicollet Foundation Growing Through Grief program in the summer of 2017 as a program manager. She has many years of experience in social work and healthcare leadership. Her current role includes partnering with 9 Growing Through Grief counselors and sharing Growing Through Grief impact that is happening across the 16 partnering districts where support is provided. Nicole finds joy in her career when able to connect with partners and influencers that share the desire to support childhood, mental health, and well-being through direct service, special projects, and creating a strong, connected community. And with that, I will hand it over to Nicole. Nicole, thank you so much for being with us today.
All right, thank you, Abby. And thank you, everyone, for attending. Good afternoon. I really appreciate you logging on and hearing more about Growing Through Grief. Growing Through Grief program is really all about community. So the more the community can know, the better. And this is just a great opportunity to do a quick coffee and chat. In our first slide, I want to introduce the day that we're recognizing today. So the reason we chose the coffee and chat for today is because today is National Children's Grief Awareness Day. And that's a day where we come together and observe every third Thursday in the month of November, which is the right before the holiday season starts. And this time is particularly wise to choose for National Children's Grief Awareness Day because you know, it can be very difficult for kids during the holiday time and for grieving people. So Children's Grief Awareness Day seeks to bring attention to the fact that often support can make all the difference in the life of a grieving child. It provides an opportunity for all of us to raise awareness and help make a difference in the impact that death has on a loved one who's lost a child or a parent, and helping people feel supported in that process. The state of Minnesota is in alignment with us as we support childhood grief throughout our program and throughout all of the Minnesota programs. They have signed a proclamation, Governor Walz, supporting Children's Grief Awareness Day on November 16th, 2023. So this program is not a program that's addressing a minor need. Sometimes we think about childhood bereavement and grief and think that is a very, very difficult situation to be in. But then we don't think there's really a lot of people that are in that situation. So the prevalence of childhood bereavement is growing over the last couple of years, and we'll get into that as we talk about the presentation today. My goal is to let you know more about the program, but also about childhood bereavement and grief across our country and our state, and how it has evolved over the last 5 years or so. We'll go on to the next slide, which will bring us into giving you a little description of what the Growing Through Grief program is. If you are aware of the Growing Through Grief program, which I'm assuming you all are, that is wonderful. But I want you all to be able to explain it to people too. The more I talk about it, sometimes that conversation makes a huge difference, and it often leads to getting more kids support. everybody seems to have a story around grief, and knowing that there's resources available to help our children is comforting to people, and they want to know about them and share them when possible. So please feel like this information is meant to empower you to know about the program and how to share it with others. So we are a school-based grief support program. We don't have a building that kids go to or family members go to. Our staff, we have 9 grief counselors, and our staff work out of their cars as they're traveling from school to school, and then they live in the school. They're part of the school body and team. They are very embedded into the school system, which is why this partnership works. We are partners through and through, not quite the same thing as a vendor, more of a partner trying to figure out how to support our community and create grief sensitivity and responsiveness together. We provide weekly support. The weekly support is around grief groups and individual counseling. We are not treatment. We are a support program. Every student needs support at some time, and that is what this program is geared to provide. We also provide crisis support. So when there's a death of a student or a faculty member, we are providing collaborative death-related crisis support with the school district's team. And that can look different with every school district. We may be working together on pre-planning for crisis. We may be working together on implementation of support during a crisis. And then we always are looking at postvention opportunities too, because for recovery and renewal and helping our students manage the emotions that come with experiencing a loss, that postvention is very important. And postvention often is prevention. So if we're supporting kids after these experiences, then that can help them as they may encounter future experiences. The whole program was designed it'll be 27 years in January. It was purposely designed to be barrier-free, which is part of the reason we don't have kids come back to the medical center, and we didn't create a freestanding building for kids to go to. We wanted to go where the kids are at. So that's our only option, is we come to you, which is kind of fun. I wish there were more services like that as an adult. They should just come to me and get the job done. But we were purposely designing our program that way, is to go to the children and meet them where they're at. There's no fee for the families or the students. There's no transportation required. The access is open. It's open all school year long and for consecutive years. So basically what that looks like is when a child experiences a loss in their life of a significant person, they get their own personal grief counselor until they graduate. Now, that doesn't mean they're sitting in counseling support every week from the time the event happens to the time they graduate, but it does mean that they can access support anytime they need it. And kids grieve developmentally. So if they need to be in group all of their middle school years, they have that option. If they need to come back their senior year as they're approaching graduation and big adult making decisions without a parent in their life, they may need to come back and talk about how that feels and how that's impacting them. So it is purposely designed to support the students developmentally and have that flexibility. We're also working on reducing stigma in the schools, and through that we provide coaching and consult to the staff. We provide grief sensitive information and ways you can be responsive to grief. We'll flip to the next slide. These are all the districts that we're in. There's 16 districts, so that you can take a quick look at that map. Are you in it? If you are, that's pretty exciting. It's quite a widespread, so it's a very nice impact across our state, our metro, and our western Wisconsin areas. So the next slide will show us not only what districts we've been in and how we've evolved over the last 5 years. We went from 13 to 16, so we have grown in our district engagement, and our schools have went from 92 to 127 engagement over the last 5 years. And every year that engagement goes up and up. You can see the engagement was slower kind of around 19, 20, and 21, and those are our COVID years. So the good news is we stayed involved, we did digital support, and the numbers stayed fairly high. But since COVID, a lot of bereavement has risen, and the numbers are continuing to grow rapidly. The next slide will give you some information about how childhood bereavement has evolved over the last 5 years across our nation. 5 years ago, we were at 4.9 million children that were bereaved due to the death of a parent or a sibling before they reached the age of 18. And in 2023, we're at 6.0 million. So that's quite a climb. The line doesn't look real steep because we're talking millions here, but that is a lot of growth in childhood bereavement. It's the most growth we've seen since they've been tracking numbers. The next slide will show us a little bit about more locally. You can see the top line is our Wisconsin trend. So 5 years ago, we were at 79,000 children that were bereaved due to the loss of a parent or a sibling before they turned 18. And 96,000 is where we're at in 2023. So that for Minnesota is 64,000 to 84,000. So a growth of 20,000 kids per year in the last 5 years. So over 5 years, a 20,000 number growth. So the next slide will show you about growing through grief and how our numbers have evolved over the last 5 years. We were at 575 in 2019. We had a little COVID dip in the middle, and now we're currently up to 830 at the last count. So that's 830 students that had referrals to our program that have received weekly support in some way and fashion across all of our 16 districts. So we started this conversation with thinking about the prevalence, and we know the situation is very sad and important to acknowledge, important to take care of the people we love who are in this situation. But do we really know of the prevalence? And that's why these numbers are shared, because the occurrence of childhood bereavement has grown, as you can see. The next slide will tell us a little bit about what happens when we don't support childhood bereavement. So when we started this program 27 years ago, there were not a lot of supports in place for children. Matter of fact, the legacy of our program, Katie, her and her family were a family where Katie had experienced the death of her father when she was in high school. And later in her adult years, in her 20s, she had experienced her own death. And as the family reflected on these two deaths, one of the things they looked at is the lack of resources that Katie had available to her to help process all the emotions that were related to her father's death when she was in high school. Things have changed since 27 years ago. There are more resources. There are not enough resources, but you can see growing through grief. That's when we started. Katie and our family invested the first donation into our program to help start and make change for children who are experiencing grief. And we started with one group and one high school. And now if you look at the numbers then compared to now, you can see there was significant growth and significant need that was unmet prior to the programming. So the concern is if we don't pay attention to grief, you can see that there is a lot of grief in people's stories when you hear about tragedies in the media. Our research and our science will tell us that there's a lot of adversity that comes with grief, not only the death of a loved one, but other secondary factors towards adversity, like loss of housing, loss of jobs, loss of roles. And once you combine those adversities, those adversities kind of start to push down on the developmental growth of a student. Because that's a lot to manage in our brain. The chemistry in our brains cannot cognitively and emotionally move forward on a healthy developmental trajectory while being pushed down by all those adversities. So how do you reverse that? How do you prevent your student from dropping down below the healthy development line? Well, we prevent it by offering and having available protective factors. Protective factors, we consider growing through grief one of the protective factors, but protective factors can be anywhere. They can be families, they can be teachers, they can be faith communities, they can be coaches, there can be friends. There's so many different ways to involve protective factors. There's some kids who have a lot of protective factors and then they can brace them as they go through the challenge of the adversities pushing down on them. And there's some kids who really don't have many protective factors at all. So growing through grief, we are proud and honored and feel privileged to be able to serve these kids and be one of their protective factors. We also like to support the schools and helping them find ways to provide protective factors for these kids, because like I said, it's not always group. For many of them it is, but for others it's just having an adult who loves on them and knows them, and they feel safe sharing their story. The next slide will go into our vision of basically no child should have to grieve alone, and that's our mission. We have a twofold mission. The first fold is around no child needs to grieve alone, and if we flip through to the next slide, you will see what happens when we do support students. So these are survey results from students that have participated in Growing Through Grief at least 1 year. Many of them stay in our program for multiple years. So we just had 2 alumni that came and spoke at an event, and they were in our program for 12 to 15 years. It's unique for each individual, but when we survey them every year at the end of the year and ask them about the impact that the program has on their social relationships, their ability to talk about grief with their families, their friends, and their school staff when that's needed. We ask them about the emotions that they've learned, sadness, anger, guilt, worry, and if they're receiving knowledge on how to manage those through coping strategies. And then we ask them about how grief support has helped them in academic life. You know, how much do they know about grief? Do they understand how it impacts them? And do they understand has the support impacted grades, attendance, and their ability to concentrate in the classroom? We have, you can see by the numbers, we have positive impact. There's always room for growth, but we're always looking at results in these areas and making sure the kids are getting something out of the program that makes sense to them. The next slide shows the same results in artwork. Our program is support. We do a lot of artwork. We do a lot of sharing through art, and these are a couple of great art projects. The Grief Knot is one of my favorite pictures. Just a very wise student being able to articulate what grief is. The other one is a student talking about, I like talking about my dad, and this group helps me remember him. The next slide is a video. I want to show you a video about the program from a student's perspective. So we work with students, and as the students learn about grief, they bring it home and share with their families. So I'm going to show you 2 videos. One's from a student perspective and one is from the parent perspective. And they're both about 2 minutes long. So we'll start with the student one.
I remember since the death of my loved one came at the end of my freshman year, my counselor reached out to me immediately and was like, hey, I think you would really like to talk to a whole bunch of different people that have gone through something similar that you have. And I was up for the idea.
For me, going into group, at first I was kind of against the idea. I'm not like a therapy sort of person. I'm not sharing my feelings sort of person. But going into it, I saw it helped me realize that there's other people going through my own situation. It's a whole different group of people. Some people that you may not even realize you would have liked to begin with, and some people that are exactly like you in certain ways. And you learn to kind of bond with each other because of that too.
I think this definitely helped us grow closer and become better friends. I think one thing that surprised me about group is the fact that it all wasn't centered on talking about your grief or like sharing it right out. They kind of worked it into conversations and had activities for us to do that helped build the pieces of those, build pieces of our story until we finally got comfortable with sharing it.
There was a lot of times where we wouldn't even do the activity in grief, we'd just talk about how our weekends went. Because oftentimes talking about how the weekend went, 90% of the times it also delves into, did we think about, our loved one that passed away? And that's part of the cool thing, is that you don't even realize that you're talking about them.
It's not therapy. You're being supported by the group, and it's support. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And being able to share those thoughts in my head of the one I lost, and being able to have a heartfelt conversation with people who actually care because they've gone through something similar. I feel like it's really changed me for the better.
I'll have to tell you that the day we shot that video, those boys were so fun. We sat and talked for a couple hours, and the video is only 2 minutes long, but they had so much to share about their experience, and there was so much joy from them and appreciation from being able to have that support to help them get through their school years and to succeed through graduation. They filmed that right after they graduated high school. And so all of it was just coming together for them. And it was a really, a special moment to be able to share that with them. So I'm glad you were able to see that. This one is from parents. So go ahead and let's click start, and we'll watch the ones from parents.
Going Through Grief is a school-based grief support program. We provide peer support groups, individual counseling, and death-related crisis response. It's a partnership between Park Nicollet Foundation and Park Nicollet Health Services. Together, they've been providing school-based grief support for over 25 years. So it's an honor and a privilege for us to be able to partner with our school districts and be sure that kids have support when grief presents in their lives.
I came aware of growing through grief 13 years ago. My husband passed away unexpectedly. At a time when you're going through grief, you don't always know the next steps that you should take. So the program helped to offer a framework and guidance.
It was just a very, very scary moment in my life to try to manage everybody's grief all at the same time and how differently they each handled it.
Every student is going to manifest their grief in a different way. A lot of students, when they start grief group, might show up that they're maybe using what we call negative coping skills, and so they're avoiding their feelings, suppressing their feelings.
Grief is so not understood by many, and for them it was more the feeling of normalizing their grief, and now I can talk about that with my peers and feel comfortable about it.
If I was to say what's different or how they're doing now, they are all thriving adults. I think because they addressed the grief, they talked about it.
It was such an important life-saving tool for me and saved our family.
We are better when we take care of our children and when they have all the support they need during times of vulnerability. Community and caring and love makes all the difference. And that's why we do what we do.
Excellent. So I hope you enjoyed hearing from those parents. We get a lot of parents that call us and say, I wasn't in group myself, but having my child in group has really changed the dynamics at our home, and we can now talk about the grief and grow and heal together. So it's special for us to be able to share a parent's perspective on how growing through grief not only takes care of the child, but takes care of the family, and then takes care of the school. So I said our mission's kind of twofold. One is to make sure that no child grieves alone, but the other is to make sure that no school has to respond to grief alone. If we look at the next few slides, the next one will show us about ways that we are trying to help schools respond to grief. One of them are through pilot projects. The CARES program is a pilot project that we're currently working with. We're on our 3rd year of offering this program in the Minneapolis School District and the Richfield School District. And it's a program where the definition of grief was broadened beyond a close family or a member or a close family member or friend, and was inclusive of community violence and COVID deaths and deaths in our community, and how we are collectively experiencing grief. We have a lot of students that come. This is a short-term group versus our other model, which is long-term grief support. Some students aren't ready for long-term grief, especially if they have layers of grief like the Minneapolis students have with all of the community COVID and violence going on. So these groups are meant to be purposeful in one session, or there's 8 weeks of session where we have open opportunities for there to come 8 weeks in a row, and then the schools can carry on the groups afterwards on their own. And the kids can do whatever feels comfortable to them, which is always the case. But for Minneapolis, it really changed the engagement when we changed the model a little bit. We have tripled our engagement in the Minneapolis School District, and we've been able to respond to so many different types of grief, which are real for the kids, very real. And finding community in that grief is really important. So this is one way that we help respond to districts and help them respond to grief. The next one is another pilot that we're working with the Wayzata School District. This is the individual bereavement support plan, where we're building we've created a form with our national partners through the Coalition to Support Grieving Students and the National Alliance for Children's Grief, a form that schools can fill out with kids that will go onto their record and follow them throughout their school year age. And they work with their families as well and have permission and desire for this to happen. The reason we created this was because, one, the families tell us it's really hard to keep telling my story every year. And the kids tell us we want people to hear our story, but we don't want people to be the ones to tell them. So this form eliminates both those problems. We're in our 2nd year with Wayzata in building the system response to embedding this form into their system and helping families. And then our medical clinics are also aware of this form. So when a student goes into the medical system and the family and they say, we've had a death, they can then say, you can work with your school on getting an individual bereavement support plan in place. So it's really a nice way of connecting systems as well. I'm going to keep going to the next slide. I'm moving a little fast because I realize we're getting to the end of time. We have many tip sheets whenever there is a crisis or a need for more educational information. We have several tip sheets we can share with the school staff, which can help them respond to students. And then the next slide is a video. This is the last video, and this is the end of our presentation, actually. So what I want you to know about this video is this was also a pilot project that we did with the Funeral Directors Association and their foundation. And it was a time where it was during COVID, and kids were not able to go to funerals, and families weren't able to go to funerals because of COVID. And I thought, well, what happens if we had a tour of a funeral home that kids could know, what a funeral might be like. So when that memorial time and that funeral time comes in the delayed fashion that it did in COVID, they may be prepared more, and they'll have an opportunity at least to ask questions. So this video was created with the Funeral Association Foundation, and it was a video that was created by children for children. and we share it with families when they call and say a loved one has died and we're preparing for the funeral. And then families can either look at the video and kind of then have a better sense of how they can help their child, or they can watch it together with their child. So why don't we hit play and then we can show this video.
Before I came today, I was kind of nervous, but as soon as we kept doing it, it was really fun.
My name's Melissa, and I'm a funeral director. Today I'm going to spend some time answering your questions and walking you through the funeral home. Now, who's been to a funeral before? You have? Great. How did that make you feel? How was your experience?
Kind of sad.
Yeah, it was sad. I bet it was, because you were there to honor someone that had died. So that is a really sad experience. Yes.
What's the best part about being a funeral director?
Oh man, what's the best part about my job? Being a funeral director? Well, the best part I think is getting to be with people like you. To be able to find those moments of joy and help people remember is part of my job, and that's really where I find a lot of happiness.
What I'm really thankful for about this tour is the deeper understanding, the being able to see the picture boards, the learning about how other people deal with this, seeing the people who really are the backbone. Because when you're at a funeral, you normally don't see the funeral director. And it's important because grieving alone is extremely hard. That's why it's good to come together as a community.
During the visitation, there are so many ways that you as a child can honor the person who has died. One of those ways is a memory board featuring photographs of the great things that maybe you or that person's loved one did together.
This is my Abbey little bunny. She gave it to me before she passed away. I wanted to share my feelings with other people so they can know how I felt.
Sometimes there are therapy dogs there at the visitation and during the funeral service to help provide comfort to you and the people around you who may be feeling sadness.
When I saw the dog, I was like, wow, because that was not what I was expecting. Cremation is when you use fire and turn them into ash and then put them in an urn. I was really glad to learn about cremation. I didn't get to look inside the urn, but the urn was cool.
Communities, cultures, and faith groups celebrate life in many different ways. You may attend a celebration in a chapel, or you may even attend one outdoors. Okay, we have talked about a lot of things today. So, what other questions do you have?
What is a casket used for?
What is a casket used for? Such a good question. Well, let's talk a little bit about that. They make these in all sizes. So if someone's particularly tall, we'll take care of that. Or if they need a little bit more width, there's certain caskets for that.
My experience in the chapel is when I got to touch the pillow, it was surprisingly soft, and how the casket actually had like bedding in it. And you can write like love notes and put them in a special compartment in the casket.
Food brings families and communities together, and this gives us an important opportunity to share our love for one another. A lot of times after we have funerals or celebrations of life, memorial services, we like to gather together, right? We like to talk with our friends, be with our family, and show how much we love each other. Think about when we have a birthday party. What do we have? Food. We have birthday cake.
I think it's a really good thing to have food served because the people who passed away in life, those foods might be their favorite food, and it like can honor them.
Here we have an excellent example of something from a culture. Does anybody recognize what this is?
It's Nava.
Nava. And what is this?
It's like a drink with jelly.
Great. And when do you have it?
Mostly celebrations. My favorite part of the tour was probably getting to try the Nava because it's like a new experience and learning how another culture celebrates it.
What I like other kids to know is that a funeral is sometimes sad, but sometimes fun too.
Even if someone tells you to go to a funeral, you might not want to. I think it's important to me that you can have like a choice.
The sadness that you might feel when you experience the death of a loved one will probably not end when you leave the funeral services. Your feelings matter, so let grown-ups support you. Ask them questions and let them know how you feel. Maybe you'll even get to join a group of kids just like you who are experiencing the same emotions.
It's important to know what dying really means so you're not confused and you know where like a friend or family member really is instead of just like not ever seeing them ever again and not knowing why.
Kids don't have the vocabulary, they don't have the words, the ways to say it. And so sometimes I figure you could just draw down all your feelings.
Because if other people have experienced the same thing that you're feeling, then it kind of makes me like feel like I'm not alone.
As a funeral director, I want you to know that we are here to support you. Don't hesitate to ask us any questions that you might have when you attend a funeral service. We're here to answer those questions and support you in your own unique grief journey.
I think it's so important that kids pay attention at a funeral is because they get to learn a little about the people who have died and they can honor them. Now that I've had a tour of a funeral home, I feel like I'm really less scared.
All right, thank you. I think now is a good time to move to the chat part. If anybody has any questions, I just want to thank you for attending and hearing more about the program. The program wouldn't exist without communities' investment and individuals that care about our kids and making sure they have the support that they need. So thank you so much for being partners.
Thank you so much, Nicole. And let me check the Q&A box here. Let's see here, we don't have any questions yet, but it's just, this has been such a beautiful presentation. Thank you very, very much. The video made me, all the videos, but especially the last one made me kind of tear up a little bit, but. Let's see here, okay, we will be right back. Yes, any questions you guys have now, just please enter them into the Q&A box. Otherwise, we're happy to forward any other questions that you may have offline to Nicole afterwards. Give me a minute here. Well, Nicole, I am not seeing any questions at this time, but again, thank you everybody for coming. And if there are any questions that pop up, please let me know or let Nicole know, and I'd be happy to connect you guys if you're not already connected. But thank you so much for joining us today. And Nicole, thank you for sharing your expertise and the wonderful work that you and the grief counselors are doing to make a positive impact in youth's lives. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Abbey.
Bye, everyone. Have a great day.